flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. All right, just want to thank everybody for coming out on this Wednesday. Normally it's a work session for us. We are actually going to do a little bit of work in this session prior to the public hearing, which is posted for 7:25. We are in the midst now, I think, of just doing the warrants. So, Madam Clerk, when you are settled and ready, please read the warrants.
It looks like you just have a general warrant.
I have two.
Okay. So your first warrant is general expenses, $839,533.18. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes carry. Next warrant.
And then we have a utility warrant in the amount of $36,337.57. Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Ayes carry. All right. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
So
And in the spirit of being on time, since everyone has been so patient, Madam Clerk, can you read the notice?
notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of Walk Hill will hold a public hearing on the proposed adding a new chapter 20 to the town of Walk Hill code and providing for a new code section related to the offices of town supervisor and town council on July 29, 2026, at 7:25 p.m. Walk Hill Town Hall, 99 Tower Drive, Building A, Middletown, New York, in the boardroom thereof, at which all wishing to be heard will be heard. Copies of the proposal below are available for review in the town clerk's office and on its website prior to the public hearing. The town of Walk Hill make every effort to ensure the hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities, anyone requiring special assistance and or reasonable accommodations should contact the town clerk by order of the town board of the town of Walk Hill, Louisa and Marassia Taylor.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right, we're going to take a quick opportunity to go across the dais, talk a little bit about this law. First, actually, I'm going to ask the town council to read the law or at least paraphrase the law for us.
Sure. And thank you for that opportunity because I thought it might be a good idea to explain the approach that was taken. The idea is to add a new chapter 20, which, as the notice indicates, is regarding the offices of town supervisor and town council. And this first foray into that new chapter of your town code does deal specifically with the concept of term limits. But the idea of making it a separate chapter is that going forward, this board or any future board may want a place in the code where they can adopt particular provisions that relate to the conduct of business by town board members or other items that relate to their duties and obligations, et cetera. And so it seemed prudent to put it in a new section rather than sort of just tack it on to some other section in the code. The general concept of the local law, to hope people have taken the opportunity to read, is that it would limit the terms of town council members and the town supervisor to 8 years total. And there is a bit of a carve out if you had served some time as a town council person and then become the town supervisor. There's an allowance for that, because obviously it would make some sense to have an experienced town council member be able to ascend to the position of town supervisor. So your board thought that was a good idea. I think we may discuss making clear that, in the sense that, that it is, an initiative of this particular iteration of the board. These 5 board members, would, if it was adopted, be taking this step. That the idea be that the service of board members and the supervisor in the year 2026, because in any event, this law would not take effect until 2027, would be exempted in any future calculation. But the other key thing to know is that the process legally for a law that changes the term, so, well, not always, but the kinds of terms that we're talking about in this local law require a public referendum so that the entire public voter body can weigh in on whether they want to do this. And the procedure is that the board considers and potentially adopts the local law, but the local law cannot go in effect until at the November general election. The referendum is voted on by you and other voting members of the town of Wallkill, of course. And so the next step, if the board were to act on this, would be that a ballot question would be submitted to the Orange County Board of Election for inclusion on your ballots in November so that the people can weigh in. And therefore, the local law, although it may be adopted tonight or sometime in the future, it cannot go into effect until it has essentially 2027, because it can't go into effect until after the voters have been heard on. So that's the procedure and the concept behind it. And of course, tonight is an opportunity to let the board know your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move up to the dais now and go through the dais and get councilmen's positions and feelings on the matter. We'll start with Ward 1.
I'll wait.
Very good. Moving on, Ward 2.
Thanks very much. And this is an issue that has been paramount and a motivator for my running and talking with my neighbors at their doors. Term limits is something that I think helps by keeping the board fresh and not stagnant. One of the issues that I feel that happens on the national scale is for career politicians in 20, 30, 40 years to be so comfortable in their position that they just keep voting to keep their jobs. And if all politics is local, I do believe that it is incumbent upon the board for a town or village to take this issue seriously. And I do. Now, two schools of thought. If there is a 2-year term, it keeps you in front of the electorate, pleading your case, explaining why you feel an issue needs attention. But it may be too short and thwart the actual accomplishment. And we see this, and I think it's one of the things that leads to stagnation in Congress, because they're outrunning and they're not doing the job, in my opinion. And if you have a body that has an agenda, there may be such flux in the personnel that that agenda never sees fruition and it just stalls. I would like not to see that in town of Wallkill. So I am in favor of term limits. I do believe 8 years is sufficient time to get accomplished for the town what you wish to get accomplished as you set upon this career. Plenty of time to have the feedback from your constituents and a couple of elections, at least, to know if you're on a path that they approve of. So for the 4 years, I am in favor of being able to fulfill the intention that was behind the motivation that brought you to the race. 2 years is as it is, and I am fine with that. I prefer to see 4 years personally. But I do believe that an 8-year turnover in a position is a must. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ward 3,
I'm gonna save my comments to the end, but I am for this bill.
very good. Ward 4,
Thank you. I'm just a little confused. I'm reading the public hearing notice and it says July 29th at 7:25. I walked in at 7:21 and the meeting was underway. That would be a problem in my mind, opening the public hearing before the actual published time. I had a couple other things about it legality wise, but I think I'll hold my comments. I do question the retroactive time people have served, counting towards their term limits. When you research it with the state, that is not something that they would recommend or move forward with. And without it actually being in your town code, your local code, it would make it illegal to go backwards. When you adopt the term limits, it would be from that point moving forward. This is clearly written for 3 individuals to not be able to run again, not for any reasons that you heard the other council members speak of. So, you know, I would be fine if it was moving forward. And as you heard me say before, if you want term limits, it should be for all elected officials, not for picking and choosing. Can you tell me why we started the meeting before 7:25?
I do want to make clear, the public hearing wasn't opened.
And why are we talking?
Well, some business of the board was done. It was, the notice itself, I think, said that the board may conduct a.
Okay, there was text at 2:25 PM that said 7 PM for the public hearing and a vote.
Well, I can't speak to that, but the notice, the public notice said 7:25, and the public hearing hasn't been opened yet.
Then why are we discussing it?
we're just getting the preamble done so that we can get opened up, and it's now 7:30. And you walked through the door at 7:25.
No, I did not. You can check my card swipe it, dude. I was in here at 7:20. And the public hearing is at 7:25. And the meeting was underway. But whatever you gotta do, you know, that's fine. I'm good.
All right, well, great. We have public here and we're starting the public hearing and it's 7:30 now, so I think we can agree that it is 7:30 and we can get started. So at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for public hearing for comments on this local law or on the passage of this local law. For anyone who wishes to comment, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak on this topic.
Mr. Supervisor, why don't you make that motion officially and get a second?
Very good. I'd like to move that.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Negative.
All right, very good. Ayes carry
And the motion was
To open the.
to open the public hearing.
the conversation.
Yeah.
So is it open?
So it is open, yes. So with that, anyone wishing to speak on this topic may do so. Please approach the podium and you may do so at this time.
Good evening, gentlemen. Deborah Mole Queen, kind of Walk Hill Meadows. I'm against this. January, the 19th Amendment gave me and women like myself the right to vote. Women of color did not have that constitutional right until 1965. Native Americans not until 1957 because they were not considered citizens of the US. This notice that you want to do restricts my right to choose who I want to vote for. If I think, Frank, you're doing a great job, I should not have to be restricted saying that, no, you've served 8 years. I can't vote for you. With this vote, it also uses the loss of expertise. Don has stated, Councilman Saleo has stated that the first year is just running and trying to figure out what the job is, but that's with any job. That's not just being a town official, it's with any job. And it causes a brain drain. If you were to leave, your knowledge that you have gained is gone. And you know, you all say, you know, you guys want to do a good job. You all want to get reelected. So this law would force good lawmakers to leave with their knowledge. And so I would like to, tell you that I'm very much against this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, please approach.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Brooks Edmonds, and I'm from the town of Walkville. I tried my best to understand the resolution. First of all, I didn't know about this until the last board meeting. And fortunately, I attended at that meeting. So it came to me as a surprise that we were trying to do what I really think should be done at the national level for every position. I'm all for term limits, but I have some concerns about the local politics. And locally, I think it's better. I mean, I think it's better if we have the opportunity as citizens to determine whether we are satisfied or unsatisfied with your performance. Every 2 years gives us the opportunity to say, yes, we're happy, no, we're not. We're not stuck with somebody for 4 years that we're not happy with. That's the first thing. The second thing, I'm not really clear, what are gonna be the terms? Is it gonna be 2-year terms or 4-year terms? I know the resolution says for just the duration of 8 years is the term limit. But what are gonna be the terms of the supervisor and the councilman? Is it 2 or 4?
Would you like to?
Joe, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so the terms, this law does not change the terms, and so the terms would remain the same, it's just 2 years.
Now, the implementation of this policy or law is going to be at the point that it's implemented, or are you talking about retroactive?
It would, I think that's a point that the board can discuss whether they want to address that issue, but as written, it would be retroactive.
I don't understand why. That's the thing that's puzzling me. Why would you do that? Because I'm looking at everybody who's on the board right now. And I'm thinking, everybody is doing fine as far as I'm concerned. So who is it that you don't want to be back on the board again? I mean, that is a question I have.
I'm sorry, is that a rhetorical question or a question?
It's like there has to be somebody that you don't want on the board, because everybody here right now, if you started term limits today, that would mean the term limit for you would start as of the day we vote for this, right? So you would have 8 years from that point before, when the clock starts running. So as far as I'm concerned, who are you talking about? Because if you're talking about somebody who's been on this board for 20 years, I don't see him.
Well, I think the exercise is specifically to avoid opportunities for someone to sit on the board for 20 years.
But you can do that going forward, so I don't understand why retroactive.
No, can't.
The exercise is an academic one. Either we're counting years or we're not counting years. So if we're counting years, then if someone has been on the board, but they've only been on for 1 term or 2 terms, then they are capable of running again and being on the board again. There's no,
But
there's been this exercise about that somehow this is an attempt to block people from joining the board. That's not true. This is an exercise to bracket a set number of years that is an appropriate amount of time to serve as a town leader and not be open to sitting in a seat indefinitely. And at some point you got to start counting, and at some point you got to stop counting. So
my question is still, So what keeps you from starting counting on the date this is implemented? Because to me, if I ran for the board and I invested in being on the board and I'm working really hard, and then somebody comes in who says, okay, what you did before, we're gonna count against you. That's not fair. And it's not fair to the public either, because it seems to me, and I'm just telling you as a person who came here last week, heard this for the first time, went home and read the resolution, tried to understand it to the best of my ability. I can't understand what's going on and why we're trying to make so many changes in such a drastic way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Hello there, my name is Kevin Mulqueen. I live at 41 Silo Lane. Debbie, who already spoke. Thank you for allowing me to speak. All of you know me personally. Several of you I've supported in ways that I don't want to talk about at a public meeting. One of you I actually served on a board with, and another one I served on the IDA with. And I rooted for the Mets with our town clerk. You're like the guy kind of on the outs because you're last at the temple here, but I have two issues that I want to raise with you. I'll set aside the fact that I'm opposed to term limits, because that may be irrelevant because you guys want to put it up. So let me talk about two issues. One is whether or not it is retroactive or starts counting on January 1 of the year when the law goes in effect. As someone who thinks about people who used to be on the town board, I might be the perfect example. I have a councilman that I like very much, and I hope he stays there for a long time, but you know, life changes. If the third ward seat was vacant and it was only retroactive, I could run. If you adopt it the way that you propose now, I am one of 8,000 people, or however many in the third ward, who can't run. I think that's wrong. And it actually impugns your intent. And that's not good for passing this thing. Separately, Don, you mentioned term limit, you know, the length of the term. I sat on that board for 8 years. I always thought the idea of making the terms 4 years, not 2, was great. It was only personal self-interest, because if I got elected, I didn't have to run. But whenever anyone asked me, I would say, oh no, if Congress does it in 2 years and has to run again, it's good for the town board. Now, in terms of changing the length of the term from 2 years to 4 years, that probably doesn't get an awful lot of public concern. Nobody is running to you saying, oh, please make your terms 4 years. They may say, give me term limits. But nobody is saying, oh, make your term longer. So if you consider those two issues separately, that's fine. But I heard recently that the idea would be later to put the two things together and have it in one proposition in November. If you do that, this is what you're doing. the same thing that Congress does in order to get such a low public opinion of themselves. They take one very popular thing and one thing that's very unpopular, put them together, and only talk about the thing that was very popular and say, that's what we did for you. So if you want to have success with this, my suggestion is you eliminate the retroactivity and that you do not put the proposition to extend the term from 2 years to 4 years in the same proposition as the term limits thing. And I wish you well. And every one of you know, in particular, people that have served with me in some capacity, I only want the good for the community. And you've seen me do it time and again.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Good points. Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Valentin.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I have a couple of points on here to follow Kevin's thought and principle. What you're putting in place, basically, the voter knows when they go to vote who they're voting for and how much work they've done to represent them. By doing this, you're basically no different than what they've done in Washington and what they continue to do in Washington. And this basically circumvents the voter and the voter right to vote whoever they want, regardless of how long they sat on the seat. Now, you know how many years I've sat on the seat. And one of the things that I will say is that years of experience matter in protecting the town. And so I'll give you a perfect example. I just found out just recently that we lost a lawsuit that we on Smith Road. Now, that took years to do, and we removed the overlay on that. And I was told that we got sued and no one from the town showed up to represent the town. And there was no rebuttal in written to that lawsuit. So we lost the lawsuit. So they're getting everything back. And that's Smith Road, those apartments across from JCPenney's. That's a terrible thing. And that, you know, if there's experience, if there's people that know that history, it matters. One of the things that, you know, I always see is term limits. Well, I consider we already have term limits. It's called an election. Imagine if you know, people like Skoufis had term limits. He does a great job for his constituents. He does a great job for the town, and let him run for as long as he can, and God bless him. The one thing, if you wanted to look at this and really fix things, I would suggest look at making alternate terms, because I think there's a clear danger in that in 1 year, the whole board can be wiped out with new people that have no experience, that don't know the history of one lawsuit or one project, and they all come back to these people that don't know anything. So I think that there's other towns that have done it. I think that having alternate terms when, you know, you run at different times, not all at the same time, makes sense. The other thing is that, you know, when we have a public hearing, we hear from the public. It's the purpose of hearing the public and getting ideas and suggestions and letting us as the public voice our concerns and issues. And my understanding is you're going to vote on this tonight. So this is a facade, because you're not giving yourself a chance to listen and then go back to discuss and make changes to this. You've already decided you're going to vote on it the way it is. So the idea of listening to the public and having a public meeting doesn't matter, because it's already on for a vote. The last thing I had, if you're actually going to do this, I don't see why just the board. You should include all elected officials, and see how it impacts that. To have a board replaced and also, as Kevin said and previously stated, to have it retroactive, listen. I give you my word, I did 20+ years, 25 years, I'm not coming back. So if that's what you're concerned about, I give you my word on that. But, you know, consider the thought of alternate terms and not so much, you know, 8 years and you're done, because we need that years of experience. We need those years of people hearing from projects. And I've seen it before. We get a new board and a project that was denied years ago, they come back and say, this is the best project. We have everything for you. And that's what they try and do. They try and snowball a new board. So I think alternate terms speaks and serves the town much better than this thing that's presented tonight. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valentin. You bring up some good points too. The ultimate terms idea is something that we did talk about briefly. I think that it's very valuable.
But I'm just, what does he mean by alternate terms?
He means splitting the election cycle so that only half the board is elected in one cycle, and so that there's always an overlap of an existing set of board members. Currently, right now, the entire board is up for election. And as Mr. Valentin pointed out, the entire board could change entirely, and it would be in a complete new set of folks. So
And that's exactly what school boards do. If you notice, it's the whole 7 members are never up for reelection at one time, right? They split it, it's 3 and 4. Because that way you don't have a brand new board that knows very little about the history of what's going on. So it's the same idea, you know, we've always said that here, that they should probably be staggering the terms. So at one time, you're not getting 5 new members, you know, trying to figure out what's going on in town. At least you have some overlap where people with experience and a background and understanding the history are still there. That was the idea behind it.
Yeah, and that concept, just like length of terms, could be considered any time to, so it's good. It's a good comment.
And the length of terms, the only reason that we're not voting on that, because that was in the original proposal that was put forth from the attorney back in the day. I don't know, it was 2 weeks ago or something, when it was emailed to us. It included changing the term to 5 years or 4 years from 2. But you can't do that without 150 days notice before it goes out to the voters, according to the state, which is the reason it's not in this one. Otherwise, it would still be here because it was in the original resolution that was drafted. It was to do 2 things, to institute term limits of 8 years and change the terms to 4. So, and again, as you heard, it's a great idea, but it's kind of self-centered to the person who's running, because now I only have to run every 4 years, right? So it's a lot less work for me. And it is true, you are distracted knocking on doors all summer, every other year, but that's also good because you have to talk to your constituents. You know, you're forced to knock on doors and speak to them and hear what's going on. So a 2-year term is ideal, you know, because every 2 years you're running. But the only reason we're not going to 4 in this one is because, again, they didn't do it in enough time where they had the 150 days. Otherwise, that would be here too.
anybody else? Okay. I'll come back up to the dais and see if there are additional comments from the councilman.
So a lot has been said over the last few months about this. I pointed out that basically 17% of the time, a councilman will have a councilman / supervisor will have an opponent. You're gonna take people away who want to serve, you know, and I can foresee that number going down, as if it's not sad enough. But the truth is, and anybody who's ever served can tell you that you're here. It's like a calling. Okay, it is. I don't make, you know, $180,000 like a congressman. I don't, you know, I don't have all the benefits that come along with being a congressman. You're just a resident. That's all you are. You're nothing more. Okay. 2 year, 4 year for me is just, absurd. Kevin, you said it well. I would love, when you're sitting here, right? I would love to have 4 years, right? But you know that it's not the right thing. It's not the right thing for the people. Right? So why even bring it up? It's just, it's self-serving. I don't have to answer for, 3 years. I don't have to knock on a door for 3 years. I don't have to listen to the people that I serve for 3 years. So, and then, whatever the political climate is in the country, I mean, you catch your second term quite easily, and you never have to answer for anything. Everybody brings up, and I agree with how at the federal level, congressional level, how you agree with term limits. It is tough to beat an incumbent congressman. I think the rate is like 95% reelection for an incumbent in Congress, right? And that's because they're raising money from the day they get elected. They're raising money and raising money and they're raising money. And then all of a sudden, a year later, the other party comes out with a candidate and they start to raise money, right? You can't keep up with it. Here at the local level, you shouldn't even be raising money to run your race. Okay? What does it cost you? I can tell you, it costs about $3,000. Palm cards, signs. You want to buy new sneakers? Go ahead and buy new sneakers because you're going to be walking. All right? That's it, man. That is it. And then you're beholden to nobody. Nobody. I've sat up here for 11 years, never taken a penny. Never taken a penny from anybody. And believe you me, you sit up here and you get the offers. And they come in chunks. $5,000 here, $5,000 there. All offered to you. But you know what? That person's going to come back 6 months later and go, hey, I got this project. I need you to push it for me. I've never taken a penny. We talk about who Deb brings up. Who do you not want to run? The answer is simple. It's myself, it's Johnson, it's Valentin back there. They don't want us to run. They feel like we stole money. They say that this is what they were knocking on doors saying. We stole $40 million. Okay? I know it for a fact. Don, you don't remember?
Don't talk to me directly.
No, I will. I will. You're looking at me funny. You don't remember standing out there going, show me the money?
First of all, nobody on my side of the aisle was offered $5,000. So do you have those names?
Yeah, the guy who gave you 1,500. Yeah.
Is that 5,000?
No, I'm just saying.
I
just
think Frank got 5,000
Just say the truth.
from the.
That's the truth, Don.
Frank got 5,000 from the farm
What-
out there
what-
that contaminated.
Am I out of line?
Groundwater. Yeah, they put hazardous waste out there.
Not
Frank,
one
did you get
penny.
a donation from that? farm?
11 years.
The Ford farm, right? Did you get a donation from them?
I think that this is sort of.
No, it's a question. Did you? Mr. Soleo saying it never happened to 5,000. I'm pretty sure you got $5,000 from the individual.
If you're asking me if I legally raised money for my campaign, the answer is yes.
I'm asking if you took a donation from someone that contaminated.
I'm telling you, I legally raised money for my campaign. Yes, I
So
did
you
that.
took their 5,000.
I legally raised money for my campaign. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, I appreciate that this is an opportunity for maybe some mudslinging, but
Nope.
really what this is about speaking to the direct, and I think we've heard it a lot, direct concern with the fact that politicians sit for a long period of time. And now I'm gonna chime into this.
Well, hang on, I
Thank you, Mr.
wasn't
Johnson.
finished, Frank.
Hold on, we're not finished. You
I
can go
wasn't
last,
finished.
the councilman go first.
What I was alluding to is that, you know what, if you wanted to do this, you just don't put it retroactive and you put it moving forward. Listen, this thing gets on the ballot in November, 100% pass it. No matter what the language is.
100%. Thank you for voting for it.
Yeah, no matter what the language is. You know why? Because people are gonna look at it and they're gonna see term limits and they're gonna go, hell yeah, get the bums out, thinking not thinking really local.
This is the
Okay.
concern. This is, you're,
It's not a concern,
not
right?
exactly the concern. Listen, if the idea is, oh my goodness, we have to push back on this law right now because it's definitely going to pass. There's no question that it's not going to pass. This exercise right here is quite literally to let the public vote.
And the people who were in tune with the town came out. 4 people spoke, 4 people against it.
Of a 38,000 person town.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get at,
November
right?
election,
That's what I'm trying to get
an
at.
election.
Where are they?
They'll be there. in
No,
November.
this is a huge concern.
Again, I'm gonna say,
Huge, massive
guys,
concern.
okay. I appreciate the concern. I understand the concern. Nobody on this board is forcing anyone to vote any specific way. This entire exercise, and for those in the public, this entire exercise is so that you have an opportunity to vote on term limit. You can vote it down. To Mr. Johnson's point, if there was conflation in the fact that somehow there was going to be 4 years and we were doing some sort of shady thing, and then all of a sudden there's not 4 years because, well, we couldn't make the window. Well, if there's no 4 years, then it's a non-issue. It doesn't exist in the conversation. We shouldn't be debating it. If there's 2 years in the law, then there's 2 years in the law. Here's something that I can tell you. Goshen just tried term limits. They lost. They lost on the 4-year mark. Maybe 4 years is the killer. I don't know. It's not for me to decide. What is for me to decide is to push up the thing that I heard at every single door I went to. Every single one. And that is term limits. We want term limits. We should have term limits. Now, I've also heard that this is somehow to block people from running. No, this is a simple mathematical skill. That's it. It's how many years is an adequate amount of years? That's the number of years. Stop. If someone has been on this board and they have a window to run, and I believe you said you were on this board 11 years, 10 years, 11?
Yep.
And the maximum number of years is how many years? 16? You still qualified to run. So I'm confused. So this is my point. There's nobody forcing anybody off of anything. There's no exercise to block anybody from anything. This is specifically to drive forward the #1 USA voice against politicians that I have heard ad nauseum for years coming out of my own mouth. Those folks are there for too long. And yes, you're right. They come to you with money. And yes, you're right. I did actually raise some money for my election, as I will for every other election I happen to be in, because it's legally allowed. But here's what shouldn't happen. I shouldn't be allowed to sit in a chair with all of those offers, knowing what I know, allowed to take those offers. And the only good way to stop corruption in the system, as we have heard ad nauseum, is get them out of the chair. They're in Congress too long. They're in the Senate too long. They're at the state too long. They sit at the dais too long. And so the exercise here specifically is this. Here's your opportunity, people. Here's your opportunity where the electeds are actually going to say, if you're going to want to vote us out, vote us out. This is it. To the point where we get elected every 2 years. That's true. That is 100% true. Last year, 5,000 people showed up to vote out of a town of 38,000. We know that. Mr. Valentin knows that. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. It's part of the calculation. It's why it's called political science. Yes.
Me again. So you're right. So to get to the point is that this is to allow this to be put for the vote of the people if they want term limits. And I think everyone has discussed that. I think the issue here that Mark raises, that Kevin raised is, if that is your go, then why put in the wording for retro services that you negate those years of service that someone can provide the town of years of experience? If that is the go, then do the vote on term limits and remove that wording. It's a simple thing as that.
I understand that point, and I can explain that point, and it goes back to the simple math equation. If there's a set number of years, whatever that number happens to be, 16 is the point that we're trying to make now.
How is it 16? I thought it was 8.
8 and 8. It's 8 for the supervisor's position and 8 for a councilman's position. That's 16 years total. So
So
you can sit,
a councilman who has served 8 years, but
I
wants to
understand.
run for supervisor seat.
But
it's
if they have a full-time job, they can only do the 8.
No,
8 and 8.
No.
It doesn't matter. 16 total.
No.
16 total is the number. 16 total is the number. You can sit on the dais for up to 16 years. It doesn't look back. It counts a total number of years served. That's it. Looking back isn't saying, oh, we're gonna start this from now. It's 16 years is a legitimate amount of time to sit
Yeah,
on the
but
dais.
typically when we vote on things, it's as of that date moving forward.
So let's
You're
do that.
taking-
Let's
you're
do that
taking-
math.
You're taking prior years of service and including it in your 16.
Let's do
calculation.
100%. Let's do that math.
Why?
Why? Mr. Coyne, how many years have you been on the dais?
11 years.
Add
10 and a half,
16 to that, and that gives me what?
But
27.
Thank you.
how did he
And
get there? But let me
Is
ask,
that a
how
legitimate
did
amount
he
of
get
time to
there?
sit on the dais?
how did he get there? The people voted him there. The people wanted him there. It's the people that make that decision. I understand.
which is
okay,
the
you
argument
limit-
for no
you limit-
term limits.
You limit your time and that's fine. But again, you move it forward, you don't move it back.
I'm not moving it anywhere.
Or you're
I'm counting
taking the
total number of years.
prior years of service.
I'm
as part
counting
of the
total numbers.
calculation.
This legislation is specifically for total number of years, not looking back, not looking forward, not looking up, not looking down. The total amount of time that someone serves on the dais. That's it. And if 27 years is an adequate amount of time to be on the dais, and I recognize that your service was roughly that amount of time. Again, that's great. Should you come back for 16? Would that be adequate? That gets you 30. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of time at one seat in an elected position. If the exercise is we don't like what's happening from electeds because they're corrupt, then remove the option of corruption. And the way to do that legitimately without any other governor is to say you just can't be there that long. And everybody universally seems to like that idea.
I don't think that we disagree in the phrase of term limit and producing that. I think the disagreement is that you're looking at prior years and adding it to that and counting that. Now, those prior years should be considered as a value to the town for experience. How many times did I sit on that board, Steve, and they looked over at me and said, well, what happened? How many years ago? How many years did this happen? And I was able to answer it. So you can't negate those people that have served that can provide those years of experience to the town and to the board. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, term limits is fine and I think everybody should have it. And that's why I said everyone should have it, not just the town board. And it should go all the way up to Washington. But I've never seen where a town, village, or a government has issued term limits and say, okay, and we're counting your prior years of service.
No, we're counting total years of service, total years of service.
It's-
And you can say prior all you
Tomato,
want,
tomato, it worked
or
out to be
looking
the same.
backwards. We're counting total years of service. This legislation speaks to total years of service. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Saleo, I'm sorry, we left off at Mr. Coyne. Mr. Saleo?
You have another
Oh,
public?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr.
Smoking.
Yes, Mr. Mokley.
Yes, I would love to hear Don, Steve, and Eric, because I want to hear what their thoughts are. But it struck me that this idea of retroactivity has a justice issue involved. Because every person who served previously did so during a time when there was no term limits. To retroactively apply their service, including my own, is a matter of an injustice being done. And I hope you guys at least take some time, that you don't vote on it as soon as you close the public.
May I speak to that in
Yes.
particular? I just want to make the point, and I'm just a lawyer, so I don't make policy on any of the issues that folks have raised. I do want to say that the concept of retroactivity when it comes to term limits has been passed upon. It is lawful. I just want to make that clear. Whether this board chooses to do it or the comments that have been made changes their mind in some way is up to the board. But I certainly don't want the public or the board for that matter to think that they're embarking on something that's legally crazy.
Okay. I had to go with that. So the public is not stupid. We don't think this is a problem. We think it's a lack of ethics. For you to go backwards in time and count someone's already accumulated towards this arbitrary aggregate of the amount of time they can serve. And the fact that you just gave us an outline, it wasn't bulleted, and you didn't know exactly what the law will contain, we don't know what we're talking about. Like some people might get credit for some things, but they might, other times you might not use it against them. That's what you said. Well, I recorded the whole thing. So I will.
And your name and address, please?
My name is Deborah Algarin, and I live on Hubcott Road. And I'd like to know your address. Yeah, seriously, no joke. But the point is that you said, well, we're not done with the language yet, and you're gonna write the referendum. So we don't really know what we're talking about, but overwhelmingly, the small percentage of people that have shown up, of the 5,000 that bothered to show up, of the 38,000 that are eligible to vote, don't like this. That's the point. You're saying that, it's not unlawful. It doesn't seem ethical. That's my point.
Justin Reed. Justin Reed, 46 Western Avenue. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but it seems like everyone's getting up to speak on this issue. I am against term limits at the local level. While there are 38,000 residents in the town of Wallkill, 21,000 vote. There's about 20 here tonight. I think I'm the 5th or 6th person to get up and say we're against it. I am not in favor of retroactive or the total years of service, total whatever definition we want to use. I think we should make legislation for future, not past or cumulative with the past. And I just wanted to go on record saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I consider myself part of the sample. Statistically, I used to do surveys, and typically, if one person is complaining, they typically are part of a representative sample, because a lot of people don't come, a lot of people don't vote. And so I think we here are a representative sample of our town, especially when you report the numbers that come out to vote. And I know I come out for every vote. My concern is not about term limits. If anyone asks me, I think term limits should be for the whole United States of America. It would solve a lot of problems, and we would be a nicer place to live if we didn't have all this money being passed under the table. I don't see that locally. So I still believe that the people who come out with a little bit of money, because I've seen what councilmen make. And also it's published, everybody's salary. You're not making a lot of money, and I haven't been at many meetings where people are complaining about people taking graft and all that kind of stuff. I am, however, concerned that we see this as a process that is legitimate, fair, above board, and in daylight. Something that people appreciate and understand what's going on. And we're not just going to vote and blindly, go down the list. Part of the problem is going to be that the elections have been moved for the local elections. They've been moved with the national elections. So part of the problem we're going to have is we're going to have people voting party line in the next election and not voting for people. I think that's, already a disservice to our community, because in the past, those few people who came out to vote, we were voting for people. I never voted for party. I voted for the person I thought was going to do a good job. If you're a Democrat and you're doing a good job, I'm going to compliment you. If you are a Republican doing a good job, I'm going to compliment you, and I've done that in the past, and I will continue. But I do think if you would reconsider this retroactive thing, there'd probably be a lot of support for term limits in the town, only because this is happening during a national election. And so people aren't going to even be thinking about the local guys. They're going to be thinking about, oh yeah, I want term limits. Why? Because those people in Washington, D.C., the people up in Albany, they're all doing stuff that we don't appreciate. I would like to see us think about the people here in this community, the people who come out, if it's 3,000 people or whatever, think about us, because you're representing us. And what I would like to see you do is to do something that we can all be proud of. No more of this local conflict, the stuff that you have between parties we never had before. And this is, to me, coming from the national level. I don't think we should do that here. So I would say to you, please, for those people who care about this community, I'm one of them, if we're gonna make changes that we can be proud of. And that nobody's gonna be sitting, at the bar talking about, what the town board did that I don't agree with. Anyhow, that's enough from me.
Thank you very much.
I promise.
Mr. Valentin, sure.
And I keep missing this, and when we found out this was going on, I had a couple of people ask if I could ask this, and a lot of people didn't know about this to the very last minute. So this is a major decision that the residents and you guys are putting forward, and the residents will have to deal with at the voting booth. But it's the middle of the summer. There's a lot of people on vacation. There's a lot of people away with their kids and everything. School's around the corner. This is just a bad time to have this type of public hearing, especially that it's so important to the public and to the voters. And so one of the requests that I was asked to ask you is that can this be left open for written comments? The other thing, is it televised? Because a couple of people were asking, was it going to be televised?
It's live on Zoom, it's live on YouTube.
It is. So how do you know if someone,
Because we have it here live, and we have currently.
If they want to
1, 2,
speak?
3, 4, 5 people.
okay. So they were asking if you can leave it open for written comments, because they just found out about this and they're away, and they would like to provide some comments on this as well. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just again, I have to reiterate that this action is not a very big action. It is only to create a referendum so that it can be voted on in November. It's not the town board making a decision other than to get it on the ballot. That's it. That's all that this action is. That's all that this public referendum is. There is no other action that the town board is going to take until November. And then the town, you get to decide. You don't have to argue to us or try to convince us that we're somehow going down an inaccurate pathway. You can just merely vote. It's that simple. It is quite literally the democratic process being given directly to you. And what I keep hearing is, well, don't do it, or change it so that it can't be done, or don't count past years so that anybody who did have past years, those years won't count so that they don't have to fit the window. They'll be special than anybody else. Everybody else has to fit the window, and those folks can have their added time in. That doesn't seem fair. And so I say, okay, well, let's figure out what's fair. Put it on the ballot. That's the only way this conversation gets a punctuation mark, is that it's on the ballot and it's not open for us to discuss. The people can decide. And if they vote it down, so be it. And if they vote for it, so be it. And I appreciate that there is some concern that perhaps maybe if it's on the ballot, it's definitely going to pass. I feel like that's ambitious, specifically because not more than an hour ago, I was walked through how it did not pass in Goshen. It did not pass. So there is an opportunity for it to not pass. And all that this board is offering to you, the voters, is an opportunity to vote on it. Not to hold it or to mold it or to hide it in a shadow. And the exercise, as though some might have alluded to, is shady because we're pushing to get this on the ballot. That's because the ballot has a date. We got to get it to the Board of Elections by the 3rd. And that's because this is a 1-year term. And because, quite honestly, over the course of getting into this 1-year term, every single person I spoke to personally, and some of my colleagues as well, heard the same exact story from you all, which is, we want term limits. Term limits would be great. Well, here's your opportunity. Here is your opportunity to exercise your civic obligation. And you're asking us to not provide that, or to somehow provide it in a way that's not even, that where some folks are treated differently than other folks. Because the window doesn't account for some folks, but it does count for others. So I'd like you to just remember that this exercise is purely an administrative opportunity to put this choice on the ballot for you to decide. That is all. I left it with Mr. Soleo. I'm going to come back to Mr. Soleo.
Kind of you, thank you. But I want to underscore what you just said. This is so that we get it onto the ballot. I can tell you from 5 passes just last year, where every door that I knocked on 5 times. This was the topic of conversation. I may be the one who pushed harder for it to be in this 1 year, especially if we only have 1 year to make a difference. My contribution will be in part that this got on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Councilman Vanilla.
Good evening. So I am for this, but this is just my opinion. And I want the public opinion. In other words, come November, when it's on the ballot, if you don't like the way it's written, you vote no. If you like the way it's written and you want it, you vote yes. And whoever wins in the highest majority of the vote, it either passes or it doesn't pass. So again, that's the whole point of this. I want the people's opinion. I want the people to vote. It's not, shouldn't be just left to 5 people up here. It should go to the people. So with that being said, my opinion, term limits will actually encourage more involvement from the community members. Why is that? Because a person who's interested in running for office wouldn't be turned away because the incumbent always runs and holds the seat. Parties would have more opportunity for outreach and new member involvement. If you're that worried that you're not going to get that much involvement out of your own party, then maybe you should be looking at your party. Chance for new voices, perspective of fresh ideas. Yeah, they could be really bad ideas, or they could be really good ideas. But the whole idea is to get those new ideas out. No one's looking to reinvent the wheel. Reduces the chance of someone expecting pay to play. Favors because they know a long-term official. Again, overall, this decision is up to the people to make. If we go by stats, there are 6 people that spoke up tonight. There's 17 people in the room. That means the other 11 people who didn't speak, you would take it that they're for it. Maybe right, maybe wrong, but that's how stats work.
Are we gonna go around and take a vote? Like, is it?
No, I'm just saying, this, you came up and people spoke.
I mean, is it up to like the people in this room tonight only that, you know?
No, of course not.
No,
Oh, okay. Putting this on the ballot, like, cause you're saying if we don't, you know, the majority of people here don't want it, it's not going on the ballot in November, or?
this is going on, it depends upon our vote here tonight. If it passes, it'll be on November's
So
ballot.
this is the due diligence exercise. You just gotta have this done.
That is correct, in my opinion.
So it's worthless. It's useless.
No, it's very worthwhile.
Well, the woman who does statistics for a living just spoke to what a sample size means, what a sample indicates.
Right.
Is that one person represents many. So you're.
So the 11 that didn't speak
You think
represent as many,
you think
because
so?
statistics can be skewed.
Okay.
I took that class too.
Yeah, well, it's actually not a class.
Yeah, it actually
It's
is in
actually-
college.
It's actually a career. But
Well,
okay.
No, they teach it in algebra too.
We can stay on, let's stay on topic. Let's stay on topic. Let's stay
So
on topic.
overall, again, this again, it's only my opinion,
Right.
all right? My opinion in my mind is worth a grain of salt. You go out there, you vote your opinion. But again, like my colleagues have said before, I've gone knocking on many doors, and one of the main topics was about term limits. And as a person who's been elected, it is my job to put what I heard out there, and that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Johnson?
Supervisor. So let me just start with the problem with politics. It's not term limits, it's money. It's big money in politics that create the problems. And it's people that take big money, that owe big favors, that do things. And that's the problem with politics today. Doesn't matter how long you've been there, it's people that take funds. You know, if I take $1 million from a corporation, obviously, whenever I get into the position to make laws, I'm going to have to favor that corporation, right? So at the federal level, getting money out of politics is going to fix the problem. It's not necessarily term limits. Term limits do, because it gets rid of the people that were taking that money. Fortunately, at the town level, you don't need to take money. There's no big corporations that have to give you money because it doesn't cost that much to run. You heard Councilman Coyne say, 11 years has never taken a penny. 11 years, I've never taken a penny. I buy my signs, I buy my palm cards, spend maybe $2,500, $3,000. You get to reuse your signs, so you don't have to spend $3,000 the next time. So it's not like we need to take funds. And that's what keeps a board and politicians honest, not taking money from other people. You heard it mentioned that people on this board have taken money to sit here at the town level. They've taken money. You know, and not that there's anything wrong with that. It's completely legal. 100% legal. But be minded, if somebody gives you $5,000 or $30,000, you obviously are going to have to listen to them when they come knocking on your door. you're beholden to that individual. So to me, it's more about campaign finance than term limits, which is going to fix problems. And that's for all political levels. You don't need to take money from people to put out a message at the town level. You need to knock on doors. You need to talk to your constituents. That's how you get your message out. You let them know what's going on. If you take money, large amounts of money, so you can send out mailers and you can put out commercials and you can do things, I mean, that's great, but it's not needed at this level. It's just not. You need to knock on doors. You know, I'm looking at the numbers that, you know, people have taken, and there's one check from an individual that, you know, I probably wouldn't accept money from, you know, for a lot of money, $5,000, you know, $1,500 to another individual. I just feel that, you know, if somebody makes a donation to me like that, clearly I'm going to be beholden to them in the future while I sit here. And that, I feel, is the problem at the political level across the country. Look at Europe. There is no outside money when they have an election. It's money provided by the state or provided by the government. The window of time that they run is the same. The amount of money that they all put in is the same. And then you get a true representation of who's running. And you get to pick those individuals to lead for you. The idea of fresh ideas and new ideas, that's great. And it does certainly help. But if you're sitting here and you're open-minded and you listen to everybody, you will hear those ideas. You will listen to people that present something that says, hey, I think we should probably do this. What about this? Is this a possibility we could do? You know, and again, going back to experience. Experience matters in any position. Somebody that's been there the longest is always the go-to person. You heard Mr. Valentin say, there's been so many times when we'd be sitting in a meeting and be like, hey, what happened with this project? And he would flip open his little notes and he would go back 15 years and he would have something to say. So to say that experience doesn't matter and isn't important, I just don't agree with that. I mean, you just heard an individual say, I just found out today from our former attorney that we did lose that lawsuit. The town was sued because there was an overlay granted for high density housing at the mall. We tried to do a project that was really good with a pool on the roof and parking underneath, and it was, you know, 220 apartments, mostly one bedroom, a couple of, you know, a small number of 2 bedrooms, and there was just a few for 3 bedrooms for the caretakers and such. We thought it was a good project. We tried to move it forward. The project stalled. They lost their approvals, which means the project didn't exist anymore. And it sat there for years that way. They didn't renew, approvals are gone. This board said, listen, when you grant an overlay, it's like a zoning change to a piece of property. We granted the overlay with a specific project in mind. When that project is no longer viable, then the overlay should go away too, because the overlay is granted with a project. But zoning changes stay with a piece of property. So the idea was, let's remove the overlay, and if somebody comes back with a new project that we feel meets the needs of the town, we move forward. The lack of experience on this board allowed for that lawsuit to be filed and never challenged.
Mr.
Nobody
Johnson,
showed
stay
up
on
in court.
topic, please.
I am on topic.
That is
Frank.
not, that,
How
does that bear on this discussion?
It bears on this discussion because it's talking about experience and time on the board and why you're valuable.
Then I need you to speak accurately about the lawsuit.
I am speaking accurately. I was told
No, I don't think
we
so.
didn't respond. We lost the lawsuit and the decision was overturned. So now that piece of property has the overlay again. And I was never informed, sitting on this board as a councilman, I was never informed that it happened. And I can say, Mark, were you ever informed about it?
No.
Yeah, so here's the problem that goes to, right, not experience. This is what I'm talking about and why experience is important. If you sit here, you understand these things, you know about these things, and it's important. To limit the term to 8 years takes that experience away. 100% takes it away. So every 2 years, you're reelected, that's fine. You want to put it out to vote? Fine, put it out to vote. But you've heard people say, at the federal level, people are upset. You heard me say it at this dais. They're talking about taking your Social Security. Social Security, again, is not something that should, it's a payroll tax. It's not to fund other things, wars and such. It's a payroll tax. So if they're talking about those kind of things, you get concerned. So you'll vote a certain way when that might not be what's best for the town that you're representing. And that's what people are trying to say tonight. And that's fine. But I say that 8 years, I've been here 10 and another 10 on the zoning board. And in those 21 years, or 11 now here, in those 21 years, I'm still learning stuff. There's still stuff I'm pulling knowledge from when I make decisions. And you wouldn't have that with term limits. You would not. So I just don't think it's a good idea. I think you should run every 2 years and let the chips fall where they may at the local level. And I really feel money should be left out of politics. If you want to run, fund your campaign, be done. And that should be at all levels. And I think that would fix the corruption you heard the supervisor mention. If there is such a thing at the local level, I don't know. But I can tell you this, I would never take a penny. I have a piece of paper here from a very shady individual that donated a large sum of money, who was sued by the DEC and the EPA, you know, donating to local finance, donating to local campaigns, which should probably not happen. So I think that's a better fix than term limits.
I believe the Supreme Court spoke on that issue. All right. Does anybody else have anything further to say? We've heard a lot of information here today, a lot of conflated information today about campaign finance and shady individuals who make campaign finance a thing and campaign contributions and all the rest of that. The reality is this, that's all smoke and mirrors. Either you want term limits or you don't. I made a promise that I would bring this conversation to the table. I brought this conversation to the table. I made a promise that I would bring it to the town. And the hope here is that I will be able to get it on the ballot so I can bring it to the town. What the town does with it is up to the town. That's all this is about. Nobody's looking backwards or forwards or up or down. It's about setting a set number of years. That's a reasonable number of years. That's it. And either term limits matter or they don't. Not they only matter when it's convenient or when it somehow serves a goal, and then not when it doesn't. And this is why I say, let the public decide. You want it, you get to vote on it. If you don't want it, vote it down. That's the end of the conversation. There's no shady things happening here. No one's trying to block anybody from running. If you have time that you can run, run. If you don't have time, then don't run. It's that simple. People are disqualified for lots of reasons. Wouldn't be the first time that someone was disqualified for not being able to run for something because they didn't have enough time to do it. So again, not reinventing the wheel, not creating something new, quite literally speaking to the talking point that has been one of the biggest talking points in public elections, period. And either we're going to do it or we're not. We're not going to say it's a bad thing and then not change it. I'm not going to tell you that term limits are great and then not do anything about it, or term limits are bad and then not do anything about it. That's rhetoric. That's talking out the side of your mouth. The public told me that term limits was a concern. I heard them. I think term limits are a concern. You heard from every single individual on this dais that on some level, term limits is a concern. You've heard from a good chunk of this dais that somehow that conversation goes completely out the window because it's a town, it's a local election. And we have to be very concerned about our institutional knowledge. But in the very same breath, you also heard, but you should run every 2 years and that's okay. So either institutional knowledge matters or it doesn't matter. Can't be both. So again, I'm going to say this exercise is quite literally an exercise to bring a choice to the public. Now, if the opposition is concerned that somehow the public might be hoodwinked into voting for term limits in November because of the National Theater, or because people just will knee-jerk react to the word term limits on the back of a ballot, okay, that might be true. Might not be true. Feel like maybe it's not true, since the word term limits has been a talking point for the masses quite literally since the 70s. Specifically, I had an opportunity to push this forward because I said I would push this forward. I have an opportunity to bring this to the public, and so I'm going to bring this to the public. Why? Because I said I would. If the public votes it down, then vote it down. You're welcome to go campaign. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Coyne think campaigning is cheap. Go campaign. Vote it down. But here's what I will say. Do not take the right away for others to be heard by way of vote. Don't do that. That's all I've got to say about this. Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
No.
Ayes carried. Madam Clerk, read the resolution.
Resolution of the Town Board of the Town of Northville adopting local law number 12, 2026, entitled, a local law providing for a new code section 20 related to the offices of town supervisor and town council. Whereas the local law adds a new chapter 20, Town Board of Supervisor, including section 40-1, establishing term limits applicable to the offices of town supervisor and town council persons, subject to the delineations and conditions set forth therein. Whereas the town board scheduled, held, and proposed a duly noticed public hearing on the proposed local law on July 29, 2026, at or about 7:25 p.m. at 99 Tower Drive, Walthall, New York, after publication of notice in the newspaper of record in accordance with the law and posting as required by law and code, at which time all interested persons will get an opportunity to be heard. And whereas the town board has complied with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8 and 6, New York Codes, Rules and Regulations, Part 617, by identifying the proposed action as a Type 2 action requiring no further environmental review. And whereas the town board has carefully considered the public comments received and the entire record before it. Now therefore be it resolved that 1, the town board of the town of Walthall hereby adopts local law number 12 of 26, entitled the local law providing for a new code section related to the offices of town supervisor and town council in the form attached hereto and made a part thereof. The town clerk is directed to file the adopted local law with the New York State Secretary of State within the time prescribed by law, and to make any further filings required by the municipal home rule law and applicable statutes, including actions necessary in connection with the mandatory referendum requirements. 3, the local law states that its effectiveness is subject to mandatory referendum pursuant to municipal home rule law provisions and will take effect upon approval by a majority of qualified electors and filing with the Secretary of State within 20 days of elector approval. 4, the town clerk is further directed to publish and post any notices required by law with respect to this adoption and the referendum, including as applicable, notice of adoption, abstract of proposition, and notice of submission to the electors and the official newspaper, and by posting on the town's bulletin board and website with appropriate affidavits of publication and posting to be secured and filed. 5, the supervisor and the town attorney are authorized and directed to take all actions to execute all documents necessary or appropriate to implement this resolution and to effectuate the submissions of the local law to mandatory referendum, including preparation of ballot language and coordination with the Orange County Board of Elections. And 6, pursuant to local law, the effective date shall be immediately upon its adoption by public referendum and a subsequent general election, and therefore upon filing with the Secretary of the State as required by law. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Coyne?
Nope.
Mr. Solaire?
Yes.
Mr. Vanilla?
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Johnson?
No, ma'am.
Supervisor DenDanto?
Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. At this time, we'll open up public participation for 3 minutes for anyone who wants to speak.
My name is Kevin Mulqueen. As you know, I listened carefully as you read the law. And one of the phrases was that the board would carefully consider all the ins. My personal experience, as someone who sat in the seats that you sit in, is that when you actually consider all the input at a public hearing, you actually go to the work session, you talk about it, and you think about it. You don't just vote automatically on what was presented without actually considering it among yourselves. I'm sorry, that's my observation.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, very good. I have no comments for tonight, so that brings us to the end of the agenda, which is the end of the evening, so move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?